Let's talk about when it's appropriate to cut off a friendship. Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed therapist. Got a comment here. She says, along the same lines, if possible, could you please make a video about outgrowing friendships and signs that suggest it's probably time to distance yourself and cut ties? I would love to hear your thoughts. So I would say, number one, if you're asking this question, about a particular person, it might be time to do that. They're not always, but a lot of times, if you keep repetitively asking yourself about a particular person, that might be an indicator. But also, number two, if you find that, um, I would even go to number two and say that if there's blatant disrespect, and disrespect can be overt or covert. Overt would be, somebody who insults you, calls you out of your name. That could be an example of something that's overt. Covert would be someone that maybe continues to disrespect your time, or so maybe they don't show up when you guys plan things. Maybe they continuously show up late, or maybe you're kept as more of like the string along friend. So like when other people or events that they deem to be better than you cancel or don't work out, then hey, you're the backup, and so I'll call you for that. So that could be disrespectful, and disrespectful of your time. And also, um, that person considering you to be more of a last resort, as opposed to a true friend. And so they're not always available to you. Along the same lines of that is like people that call the low effort friends, which I did a video on that way back. Low effort friends, meaning that you might call them just to check in, see how you're doing, text and see how they're doing, or plan things, and they don't respond until 3 or 4 weeks later. Or they say, oh, I'm not always available, to talk, but if you're in an emergency, I'm your girl or I'm your guy. Why would you bother calling in an emergency if you're not available 99.9% of the time? And that is intentional. And I'm sure there's going to be people who hop on here and say that, hey, I don't respond, I don't communicate, I have a life too, and that's respectful. But we've got way too much technology now to not be able to communicate ever. So if you're not dependable during good times and casual times, I wouldn't really count on a person when times really, really get down and out. It's too much of a risk. I think also too, when you have to walk on eggshells around a friend, so that means that you can't have a conversation with them, or they'll likely get angry. When they have an explosive temper, or you're afraid that your friend is going to cut you off if you express a genuine thought, even if it's out of kindness. Their whole thing is to go silent, or to give you the silent treatment if it's not aligned with them. And so, along the same lines, number four, I think a friend who wants you as a fan, so they consider you to be a fan and not really a friend. And so part of a fan club means that you put them on a pedestal. Become, their needs are always more than yours, more important than yours, and they want to be on a pedestal. If your core values aren't aligned, number five, so if your core values aren't aligned, I don't recommend even giving somebody the title of friendship. So that's something where you need to vet people over time. And I recommend doing a friendship analysis every quarter, every 90 days, just to make sure that the two of you are aligned. So, for example, I don't have friends that believe in cheating in relationships. That's a core value: monogamy, integrity in a relationship. is important to me. And so people that are not aligned with that, we're not friends. We might be colleagues. We might know each other from, wherever, but I don't really spend a whole lot of time with people like that, because if they cheat on their partner, what do you think they're going to do in the friendship? And everybody's got their own reasons for cheating, and that's your business. I just don't want it. I don't want that in my close friendship circle. So you have to decide, you have to know what your core values are and act accordingly. That's just one example. And I use myself for that example. I think we're on number 6. But a person who doesn't know how to act when you guys get somewhere, um, you know, again, I'm almost 47 years old. So, when I go somewhere with somebody, they need to know how to conduct themselves as an adult. If you want to fight, if you want to steal, if you want to get drunk and get loud and not know how to conduct yourself and not know how to act, all that kind of stuff, then you can't go with me. And I've had to tell family members this kind of stuff too. So, you got to know how to carry yourself and conduct yourself. I'm not anybody's babysitter. So you need to figure out your life when you go somewhere. It's not my responsibility to babysit anybody, and I'm not going to do that. And like I said, I think that goes for friends and family, including your parents. And sometimes, your life is headed on a different trajectory, be it career, be it whatever you've got going on at home. Your life is just headed in a different way. And the two of you have less and less in common outside of just the historical fact that you guys have known each other for some amount of time. And so you're misaligned just because a lot of your life, it's there's not a lot in common with that person. And so when you can outgrow your friends, and you're actually, that's supposed to happen several times throughout your life, right? Life is a journey, right? And that's okay. Doesn't mean any of you are bad people or that there's ill will. It just means that we have outgrown each other, and that's okay. You could just separate yourself based on that, which, your life will kind of keep you busy. You'll be occupied doing that anyway. And it's natural for people to want to build relationships with those that are more aligned with them, and those that have more in common with them. So that's a natural progression. And so I'll give you an example. If I have a friend or an acquaintance that's a stay-at-home mom, and I'm a person that works, goes to professional events and things like that, and I'm busy and I don't have any children, they're just a person that's a stay-at-home mom, it doesn't mean that she's any less of a great person. There's nothing wrong. It just means that now I am now networking and socializing with people that have more in common with me professionally. And if I'm spending a lot of time there professionally, that's the direction that I'm likely to be headed in. And so I might see this person once every blue moon or once every weekend, especially if I'm working during the week and I'm going to networking events with colleagues who are involved in the same profession. That's just a natural progression, and there's nothing wrong with that. Friends that don't reciprocate. So there are people that will show up and want to hang out with you, and you might have a genuinely good time. But like when special events or celebrations come around, you may show up to celebrate this friend. However, they don't show up to celebrate you, or their celebration is few and far between. So for example, if you had a friend and the friendship group got together and gave this friend a cake and gifts and things like that, and then when your birthday comes around, mum's the word on this friend and they really didn't put any effort, I think that is, provided that they're not going through something. But even then, even when someone's going through something, they should still make an effort to communicate that with you. So the onus is not 100% on you, but if they don't make any effort, they don't reach out, they don't say happy birthday, even if they don't have it, they say, hey, my finances are kind of tight. When I get myself situated, I want to celebrate you. That kind of stuff. it might be time to go separate ways. Anyway, like, follow, and share, and definitely subscribe to the newsletter. Thank you guys so much. Great question.